Hello, this is USO Xbox 360 maintenance video number 3. Alright, so the topic of this video is how to de-redring the Generation 1 Xbox 360. So this is actually a very simple procedure, but first what we're going to do is we're going to review the Red Ring of Death issue, or Red Ring of Death issue, quote-unquote, as it's commonly called on the internet. Now then, the Red Ring of Death is experienced when the system overheats and the processor on the motherboard, which is not secured on there, becomes disconnected from the motherboard, or the graphics processor becomes disconnected from the motherboard, or the checksum module becomes disconnected from the motherboard, or some other major portion of the circuit becomes disconnected from the motherboard. So, how do we solve this issue? Well, the thing that causes this issue initially is heat. The system overheats from a long session of playing, and then when you turn it off, all that heat just sits there and builds up. Well, this causes the silicon of the motherboard to bend and warp because it got hot, and as a result, it causes the processor to become disconnected from the motherboard. And this is because that is the epicenter of where the heat is coming from. So, this is actually caused because of bad engineering. Okay? Microsoft, when they put this thing together, they didn't really see there being any kind of an issue with heat, so they didn't put the case fan on any kind of separate thermometer-governed circuit that would keep the fan spinning and pulling heat out of the system after somebody had turned it off or powered it down. Now, if they had done this, many of the issues with the Xbox 360 could have been very easily avoided. But because they were after a quick buck, it didn't get taken care of. In fact, it never got taken care of. Not really. So, what was the ultimate solution? Crazy people like me figured out solutions, and then they talked about it. They made videos like this one, where it got spammed all over the internet, and basically people had to go out there looking for all of the information. Well, I decided we're going to put all the information in one spot. So, here we go. The Red Ring of Death. You'll know that you have the Red Ring of Death when lights 1, 2, and 3 light up red on the Xbox 360, or maybe it's 1, 2, and 3. They'll light up red, and they'll just sit there and they'll blink red, and that'll be the only thing that they do. They won't do anything else. This the television will go dark. It will not talk to the television anymore. It'll just sit there and not do anything, because it's telling you there's something wrong with it and it needs to be repaired. Well, the method of repairing the red light of death that we're going to be teaching, that I'm going to be teaching you, is the simplest method, and it's not the most invasive. It's the simplest and least invasive method, and if it doesn't work, it's actually indicative of a much larger problem with the Xbox 360, and it will basically mean that the 360 is really and truly dead, and it is time to replace it. Now then, your different methods of de-redringing the Xbox. Method number 1 that a lot of people like to talk about is called the towel trick. The towel trick involves taking the Xbox 360, wrapping it up in a towel, turning it on, and letting it overheat. And then after it overheats, you unwrap it, pull the power from the back, and then let it sit and cool off. And then you turn it back on. And it'll work again until it red lights again. Yeah. We're not going to be doing the towel method. I don't like the towel method because it has the potential to melt and or destroy other parts within the 360, because while that solder is melted, if you do the towel trick and you're holding the thing and you have the 360 vertical, parts on the inside are going to slide off the circuit board, and now you have really and truly killed the 360. So, Another method is to completely dismantle it, take pennies, wrap them up in electrical tape, put them on strategic portions of the board on the underside of the board, and then bolt it all back together again. That's retarded. What this does is it causes pressure in certain points on the board so that certain connectors are either stressed or pushed forcibly into place. This does not work. If it gets hot, all you've done is provide a warp point, and not the kind that's going to take you to World 8-8 in Mario. It's the kind of warp point that's going to cause the motherboard to go from nice and flat to bubbled up and mussed up, and even more broken than it was before. This also has the potential of breaking certain circuits off of the motherboard. This also has the potential to crack the motherboard. That's why we're not going to be doing the penny trick. If you do end up doing the penny trick, you did not learn it from me, and you cannot blame me for it, so don't try. I told you not to. Another method is the Blowtorch Trick, and this is a little bit more obscure, and it's kind of the same as what we're going to be doing. It's the same theory. The Blowtorch Trick, you take the whole 360 apart, you take out the DVD drive, you take out the heat cowling, you take out everything that is take-outable, and you leave everything else in the 360. You take a blowtorch, you put it on the heat sinks, and you let it sit there for about 10 minutes while it heats up the heat sinks and melts those solder points, or reflows the solder, and gets the motherboard and the processor to reconnect. And then you take the blowtorch away, you let it cool off, you plug everything back in, you turn it back on, and it should be fine. We're not going to be doing that because it involves a hazardous material known as fire. We are not going to be using fire, because fire likes to spread. Now then, and it also has the potential of charring the motherboard and destroying the rest of the 360. So we're not going to be using that method. The method that we're going to be using is a variation on the towel trick, and it is called the Q-tip trick. The Q-tip trick is very simple, and it works very simply. Here's how it works. Step number 1. Unplug everything from the Xbox that you don't need to have plugged into the Xbox. Except for a controller. If you have a corded controller, you can go ahead and leave that plugged in. That's not really going to matter much. Step number 2. Take the Xbox 360 and lay it on its side. Now, you go ahead and you leave the 360 plugged into the television while you do this so that you can have a good monitor when you turn it back on again to make sure that it actually worked. Now then, so you've got your Xbox 360 laying on its side. Next thing you do, come around here to the back, take your Q-tips, and you break the head off of Q-tip number 1, like so. And then you find a nice hole here, because you've got 2 case fans, one here, one here. There and there respectively. Take your Q-tip, and then you get it in between those fan blades. So now that fan will not spin at all. Okay? Let's see if I can get it better. There we go. That's a good spot right there. I can wiggle this around and I can feel the fan now when I wiggle it around. Alright, so Q-tip number 2, break the head off like so. And then you stick it in between those fan blades, wiggle it around, make sure you can feel that fan, that's good. Alright, leave it in like that, plug your power in, come back around to the front, turn it on, like so. Let's go ahead and turn it on. I don't have a power brick for this one, that's why it's actually going to stay off. Nothing. You turn it on, this thing comes on, and it lights up and it goes blink, 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 I'm red ringed, I'm red ringed, I'm red ringed, I'm red ringed. But here's the thing, it's going to keep doing that until it overheats. Now when it overheats, these 2 lights here on top will light up and it'll create a C. Okay? So you'll have a red C of overheating. Once this is done, you go ahead and you set a timer on your watch, and you let it sit there like that for about 2, maybe 2.5 minutes, after which you come back around to the back here and you pull the power plug. Why do you pull the power plug instead of pressing the button to turn it off again? Because trying to press the button to turn it off again will not work because it wants to spin these fans to cool it off. Okay? So what you do instead is you pull the power plug, pull your Q-tips, and then hang on to them, set them aside, and then you set your watch again with a 30-minute timer, and then you go get a sandwich, maybe pop a thing of popcorn, pour yourself a drink. You just go ahead and let it sit for a half an hour while it cools off. You come back a half an hour later, and what you do is you put your hand on it. If it feels hot, you let it sit for another half hour. You very, very gently also, or if the top is cold, you very, very gently lift it up, and then put your hand on the underside here, because right here on the underside is where the processor and the graphics processor are. So you put your hand right here, and if you feel any heat, then you very gently put it back down, and then you walk away and you leave it for another half an hour. The idea is to get it back to room temperature. Okay? Now once it's back at room temperature, you come back again. It's cold here. It's cold here. Good. Alright. What do? Plug the power back in, plug a video cable in, come around to the front, fire it up, and what it should do is it should boot up like normal. Now, what this has done is it has reflowed the solder between the motherboard and the processor. This means that those connectors that were broken are now reconnected, and you've just de-redringed a 360. Now then, if this did not work, try it again a couple of times. If it still doesn't work, it's probably time to go ahead and get a new 360 because something bad happened. Now then, that being said, the next step in the process to de-redringing the 360 and keeping it de-redringed, or simply maintaining your 360 if it's already non-red-ringed and in healthy status, you want to keep it healthy. So, now that we have a booting, healthy Xbox 360, it's time to clean out all that nasty dust. See you later, because that is video 4. I just want to say, I hope that you have found this video instructional. I hope that you will use it as a reference in the future. Have a good day, and thank you for watching.